Here, and are you still not subscribed to Matt's channel? Well, if you're not, hit the subscribe button because he's giving out free picks each and every week. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
We are back with UFC London, a busy weekend over there with the Open and the UFC. Remember the times, guys. Times are different. Obviously, due to being overseas, East Coast, West Coast, check your local listings. Times will be a lot earlier than you guys are used to. A decent card over there. You know, a lot of English fighters. It's English heavy, not the style like the pay-per-view style. This is a fight night card, guys. Keep that in mind. So it's not the best card, but we do have some fun fights, mostly involving English fighters. We'll break it down the main card like usual, providing free picks, leans, price talk, and what to avoid. Systemsportscapping.com is the website. Client card is out Friday after weigh-ins. Looks like it's going to be a big client card. So if you're not already on board as a client, definitely a good weekend to start. Podcasts out now on Spotify and everywhere you can find podcasts. Video obviously available on YouTube if you're watching me on YouTube. What's up? Shout out. Social media is System Capping. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Free plays over there, guys. I do one free video play, short form, about 60 seconds to 2 minutes, something around that line. Usually in golf, we're 15-4 on those. 79% short form video plays. Give me a follow on social media if you're not already. Bunch of stuff over there, sports betting news, sports news in general, updates, everything over there. UFC Vegas 77 recap. Let's do a recap. I didn't love the card personally. I did mention it a few times in the video. And very small card for myself and clients from a unit standpoint. I did have a few plays. No luck, mainly due to Holly Holm. The Holly Holm loss. I was on her for a smaller unit play. You know, I mentioned it last week. If Silva was going to win the fight, it was going to be by submission and maybe a wild submission. That's what happened, right? A standing choke she was able to pull off against Holly Holm. That's what Silva had the advantage in. It was in the submission game. And you can even say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu if it got to the ground. I didn't think Silva was going to be able to get her down to the ground due to her wrestling and her takedowns. Not a high percentage. But she was able to pull off a wild submission on the feet. Holly Holm won the first round. Close round, but Holly Holm was better on the feet and a little stronger, it looked like. But she just got caught in a submission, right? So shout out to Silva. Big win for her in her career, and she's going to get a huge fight next. Right? She's not far from a title shot. You beat a legend like Holly Holm, you next to maybe Julia Pena, and then a title shot. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Madalena fight, interesting, right? I was on the Madalena side, but hey, it was close. It was a split decision. I did think he did enough, especially in the damage portion of the fight, and towards the end of that fight, I do think he did enough to win the fight. What's his name? Basil. Right, UFC debut on short notice. You got to give him a shout out. So big shout out to him. He's going to get another fight. I heard he signed a four fight contract. So shout out to him. A very impressive war, in my opinion. Now, when he got the takedowns, he really didn't do much with it. So keep that in mind. I think a few judges liked Madalena due to his damage that he did on the feet. Small loss last week. We did give some free plays out, though. Dumont, if you tailed that, Park got a finish as well. So hope you tailed that. They were more leans. Didn't love the card, right? So I didn't love anything on the card last week, and I mentioned that every week if I love the card, if I like the pick or not. Prado and the Azadar fight, no way that was going the distance. That probably was my favorite play on the card, but it definitely highly priced. Weekly update. Let's do a weekly update here. 67% on the year for clients. 2023, all plays there. 70% two fight parlays. Back-to-back losses on those with the Whitaker upset and then now the Holly Holm loss as well. You're going to get caught from time to time, right, on two fight parlays. Usually I do two fight parlays as my favorite two bets on the card. And yes, usually they are favorites to get that better price. Plus 63.3 units long term. PGA, profitable prop markets on both tournaments last week, Scottish Open and Barbasol. 66% matchups on the year. 8 out of the 9 profitable majors. That's current run. And we're going for 9 out of 10 this week at the Open. Big client card for this week. Another free play winner last week on Fleetwood, T20 plus 115. 79% of free play videos since I started them over on TikTok and Instagram. NFL is around the corner. Over 60 units of profit the last 2 years, guys. If you are watching on YouTube, please like the video. Helps me out a lot. Spotify listeners and podcast sites, give me a follow. Let's get right into it. Shop around for the best prices. Have access to multiple books. And get the best price or prop out there. I can't stress that enough. It's one of the best advice I can give you. Don't just use that one book where everything may not be available. Aspinall, minus 450 versus Tybura, plus 350. The return of Tom Aspinall, right? He makes sense that it's in England for his return in front of the wild crowd and something he really feeds off. Coming off the severe knee injury against Chris Curtis. And Tom was close to getting that title shot, right? He wasn't far away from being that number one guy. If he beat Blades in that fight, he would have been the number one guy, and we'd probably already be talking about a title shot for him. You know, he was cruising in the UFC before the injury, wins over Andrei Arlovski, second round submission. Spivak, first round TKO, and Volkov, first round submission. Making these fights look easy, guys, against veteran guys that's been around, guys that aren't able, you don't usually just beat them fairly quick in a first round, right? So very impressive before the injury. Tybura, on the other hand, you know, his resume doesn't look as pretty, right? He is 7-1 in his last 8 fights. It's mostly very low-level guys, though. And he finds a way to get it done by decision in most cases, right, with 6 decision wins. His biggest win, I think, would be Spivak. However, it was greener Spivak earlier in the career, and that was in 2020. You know, most recently, the Ivanov decision, I guess, was a nice win over a veteran tough guy. You know, I don't agree with the minus 450 price due to the injury return. Right? I don't love backing guys when they come off an injury like this. However, you know, I do think Aspinall is just better everywhere. You know, I would have the line maybe more like minus 350, maybe pushing the minus closing at minus 400. I think there is, you know, if you want to say a little value, Tybura here at plus 350 doesn't mean I'm going to bet him. I do think Aspinall is a better fighter everywhere. And I do think he gets a finish at some point in this fight. Very difficult to call. Is it going to be a submission, a TKO, or KO finish? Right? We have seen Tybura knocked out at times. Yes, it's been 4 years, but he has been knocked out multiple times in his career. 4 times, actually. So keep that in mind. Right, Aspinall is going to come with the pressure. If he wants to take down in the fight, he can. Tybura has been taken down in fights multiple times. So I think Aspinall could win multiple ways in this fight. I do expect him to win this fight unless maybe he re-hurts his knee. Or somehow, if Tybura cannot get finished and prolong this fight into the 3rd or 4th round, we haven't seen Aspinall in those territories. Keep that in mind. We haven't seen him get into the 3rd and 4th round before. So that'll be interesting to see if Tybura can prolong this fight, and then that's where, you know, he has an advantage. You may want to look at the live market if it gets into the 3rd or 4th round. But, you know, I expect Aspinall to get the finish here. Very low odds this fight goes the distance. It tells you that at minus 1,000. So if you think Aspinall is going to win, why wouldn't you take him by finish to improve the price, right? Like I mentioned, tough to call TKO or KO submission finish with him because he can do all 3. So you can just take him just to finish the fight. Most books have that. It's not the best price. It's about minus 300. But if you do want to bet Aspinall, I think you just play that way instead of laying the minus 450. So people that want to back Aspinall, I think you look that way. I think he wins the fight. I think he's better everywhere than Tybura. Now, the only scared some is, yes, he's coming off the injury. So it's not... That's why I don't love the minus 450 price on him, right? That's why I thought it would be a little lower, but hey, it's Tom Aspinall. I think he's possibly a future champion if John Jones goes away, right? So definitely I like Aspinall here at home. Should play to the crowd as well. Molly McCann, minus 225 versus Storyanko, plus 187. Molly is back in there and fighting at home, which makes sense, right? Coming off that ugly loss to Blanchfield due to the lack of wrestling. She just got dominated in that fight and kind of expected that. Blanchfield just sat on top of her, was able to use her strength and wrestling to beat her. We know McCann struggles in the wrestling department and can be taken down. On the feet, she's great, right? Bunch of nice back-to-back KO finishes. Molly McCann was on a nice little run there, got promoted by Barstool, got a big check, right? Loves to fight in front of her home fans. She gets psyched up for it. So she's going to have to avoid the takedowns here. Storyanko, not great at taking the fight down to the ground. Keep that in mind. She doesn't get the fight down to the ground enough. 10-8 fighter, only one win in the UFC against Rose Clark, where she pulled off a submission. Rose Clark also not great on the ground. I have a hard time seeing her get this fight down to the ground. Only 25% takedown percentage in her career. So it's not like Storyanko's some magical wrestler, right? If she does get the fight down to the ground, I think McCann can get up. I think she can do some damage as well. So I do think McCann wins this fight. Minus 225 is very difficult to bet, and it is difficult to call an outcome here, right? Very difficult. Storyanko can be finished. She's been finished in the past. Molly McCann, she likes to come forward and throw heavy shots. She's a boxer. So I can see her hurting Storyanko and finishing this fight. I can also see it going 3 rounds. So it's difficult to handicap the outcome here. So I'm going to look at just Molly McCann to win the fight, minus 225, fighting at home in front of her home fans. Perfect spot for her to bounce back. I like her here. Only way Storyanko wins this fight, in my opinion, she catches McCann in a submission. It's possible. Doable. That's why you're only getting plus 187. Definitely possible. If you are going to bet Storyanko and you are looking for the upsets, play Storyanko by submission. That's the only way I think she could win this fight. Nathaniel Wood, minus 225 versus Touchy. Feely, he's back, plus 187. Excited for this fight, and it could be I think it could steal fight of the night. Feely, tough guy. He can last, durable. Feely's coming off that big win over Algio. He needed that. He needed that after some tough defeats along with that no contest in his previous 3 fights. Brito caught him in that first round, right? A couple fights ago with that big shot and finish. Bryce Mitchell tossed him around. I think it took him down about 7 times. 1 due to his wrestling. Wood, 3 wins in his last 4. And the 1 loss was to tough Casey Kenny due to decision. I thought Wood maybe won that fight. It was close though. Feely does have the better resume. Is the only thing I can really mention and back Feely here with. He does have the better resume, fought the better guys. I don't see this matchup being great for him, however, due to Nathaniel Wood's volume on the feet. Feely doesn't throw a ton, and I do think Wood does throw a lot. I do think he's probably going to have over 80, 90 significant strikes. I do think he probably should win, and he could also mix in some wrestling. I do think Wood has better wrestling than Feely. Feely's takedown defense is not spectacular at 69%. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. So I think Wood is just a little bit better everywhere, besides maybe toughness, I could say. But I do like Wood's volume on the feet. I do like him maybe to mix in some wrestling and get a win here. Most likely by decision. If you want to bet this price, obviously minus 225 is not attractive. But you can improve that and get Nathaniel Wood at decision at plus money. So that may be the look here if you want to bet this fight. Craig, plus 187 versus Munoz, minus 225. I think the number line is about right here. Munoz experienced his first loss last time, right? And it was against the surging Brandon Allen and, of all things, by submission, right? 15 submissions from Munoz against Paul Craig's 13 submissions. Craig's coming off a beating from Johnny Walker and now decided to move down to 185. A little bit questionable. We haven't seen this before, so please watch the weigh-ins before you bet this fight. You know, I do like Munoz here. I think he's just pretty much better everywhere. Definitely better on the feet. I think Munoz can take the fight down to the ground. Obviously, we'll have to be careful, but I don't think Craig's going to submit Munoz. Munoz is a very high-level black belt. Was a little surprised about Brandon Allen submitted Munoz. However, got tired in that fight, and you know Allen's really good in the jiu-jitsu and submission game as well. I don't see how Craig wins this fight again unless he catches him in a submission where you have it at lower odds, right? Craig's not better on the feet, not better in the wrestling department. Craig's only path is to catch him with a wild submission. Possible. We've seen Bruno Silva do that to Holly Holm last time. I don't see it happening here. I think Munoz just dominates him on the feet, wants to bring this down to the ground. He will probably finish this fight at some point, either by TKO or submission. But I do like Munoz here. He should get back on track after experiencing his first loss. A couple other fights here. Herbert, plus 125 versus Zayam, minus 150. If I were to play this fight, I would have to start leaning and looking to the plus money here. I think this fight should be maybe more closer to pick'em, maybe minus 120. Zayam, just due to, I do think he has a slight grappling and wrestling advantage. He has improved on that. He showed it in his last fight. Herbert's just a stand and bang technical striker type of guy. We did see some flashes from him. He did hurt Tybura. Yes, Tybura in that fight. Tybura probably just was caught off guard. But, Herbert, what his strength is, he always have a good reach advantage. So sometimes it's difficult for guys to go against that reach and height, right? So that's why I do think there's some value here at plus 125. Gun to my head, if I had to bet the fight, it would be Herbert, obviously fighting at home, another English fighter here. And I do think he has a striking advantage. Now, Zayam, why I think he's favored is because I think he can just get this fight down to the ground and maybe win there. And that's why I think he is favored. And he's continuing to improve, only 26. Continues to improve and get better. French fighter. This is not going to make my client card, this fight. Lean Herbert just due to the price at plus 125. I'll be staying away from this fight, though. Murphy, minus 150 versus Calabar, plus 120. This is a fun one. Another Englishman on the card. It's opening up the main card as well. Murphy, still undefeated, right, in his MMA career with a few solid wins over Ramos, Deandra, and Amiri Khani, right? Calabar, 3-fight win streak, just very low-level guys. I don't know how good he is yet, right? He has a nice record. The wins are very low-level guys, right? So I don't know how good he is right now. I do think Murphy is just slightly better everywhere. Definitely better on the feet with his power. I can see him hurting Calabar at some point and finding a finish, possibly. Again, fighting in front of his home fans. It's something that I do factor, especially fighting in front of the English fans. So I'm going to say Murphy stays undefeated. Minus 150 is not a terrible price. This may make my client card this weekend. I can see Murphy just being a little bit better everywhere, and especially better on the feet with his power. Only thing that worries me is, he doesn't throw a ton of volume. So this fight does go to the decision and the judges' scorecards. Maybe he didn't throw enough, but I'm expecting him maybe land the bigger shots in this fight. And if it does go to the judges' scorecards, hopefully we have the English, they're giving the English supporter and the fighters the nod if it's a close fight. Could we see all English fighters win again on the card? I'm pretty sure that happened last time. The only one that would concern me here on the main card that we just talked about would be Herbert, right? I think Zayam could easily win that fight. That's why he's favorite. That's the only one that really concerns me. Obviously, Calabar could win the fight as well. The other ones, Feely has a chance as well. But I'm just saying, out of all of them, Herbert obviously shows as well as the plus money. But if I had a gun in my head, had to bet the fight, I would take Herbert just because of the price. But yeah, Zayam could definitely win that fight. But we could see another, a big card for England fans. It could go maybe one or two losses. But I do think a lot of them are favorable matchups for them. Client card will be out Friday. Should be a big card. So look out for that, guys, at my website if you are interested and want to start profiting betting on sports long term. Like I always say, guys, bet smart and know your limits. Thanks for watching and listening. Thank you.